You are watching because you have purchased my Dehydrated Starter Kit Joy. And thank you, first of all, for starting your journey to joy with me. So I'm going to follow the directions right now that I have written out, the same exact ones that you guys see. And I'm going to do this journey with you so that we can troubleshoot if necessary, and I can just give you some tips and tricks. So when you open her up, there's your packet of joy. We're going to start out with the 12-ounce jar, and we're just going to walk through this together and see where we end up. Okay, so you're going to pour your packet of joy into your mason jar. You're going to add 3 tablespoons of room temperature filtered water. If you are not familiar with your chlorine level from your tap water, I just recommend filtering your water or using bottled water because chlorine kills joy, and that's why we say filtered water. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. Give her a little stir. Super watery, but we're going to let her just sit now for 10 minutes for her to sort of rehydrate in that water before we go ahead and add our flour, which is really the food that she needs. So the flour becomes the important part, but this is what we're starting with. It's just a milky substance. Okay, so here we are 10 minutes later, and it's time to add our bread flour. I recommend King Arthur bread flour because it's high in protein. So it gives joy a lot of strength. We're going to add our 2 tablespoons of bread flour. And we're going to stir. So when we add our flour and we're stirring her up, we're going to look at the consistency. So there's a lot of factors that can play into the consistency. That includes time of year, humidity in the air, the temperature of your house, all that kind of stuff. So right now I've got a pretty heavy consistency, and that's okay. As long as she's fully wet and there's not major dry patches, we'll go with that and see what tomorrow's feeding looks like once we add water and more flour, and we can make decisions then. Again, if you have any dry patches in there, or it's just, you can still see flour, it's really heavy to mix, it's not all combining together, then just add a couple drops of water. It's really not a big deal. You're not gonna kill joy. Sourdough is very forgiving, so we're at pretty heavy consistency here. That's not where we're gonna end up at the end, but this is okay for a start. There's lots of flour in there, and that's gonna feed her. Don't overthink it. Cover her up just loosely. Just throw it right on the top like that. If you want to, you can put a napkin on top, a cheesecloth, a tea towel, and then stick the lid on like this. I like to do that because then I know a little bit of air is coming in. I personally like to baby my starter, so I just kind of wrap her up to keep her a little bit warm before I go ahead and just stick her on the counter, and you just let her sit like that for 24 hours. So I'll see you tomorrow for her second feeding. Okay, welcome to day 2's feeding. It's going to be 1.5 tablespoons of water and 2 tablespoons of bread flour. Give it a nice little stir, making sure to incorporate all of the flour, just so you don't have any dry patches. Definitely don't want it too liquidy, definitely not too dry. We have a nice thick consistency. It's coming down nicely off the spoon.
we're gonna go ahead and stick with that. Don't overthink it. Yours might be a little different. Cover her up. I like to write down the day of the feeding because I definitely will forget which feeding we're on. So that was day 2, and I just stick that on top. I definitely recommend doing something like that. Get her in her little cozy blanket and put her aside until day 3's feeding. Day 3, we're seeing signs of life. It's really exciting. If you're not seeing bubbles and signs of life yet, don't freak out. They will come. You're going to go ahead and repeat day 2's feeding for day 3. So we're at 1.5 tablespoons of water and 2 tablespoons of bread flour. And just notice, with the flour, I'm being more precise, but with the water, I just sort of eyeballed that 1/2 tablespoon because sourdough is very forgiving, and you could always add a little extra flour if you need to, or a couple drops of water. It's not a big deal. Don't overthink it. And that's it. We've got her stirred up. We've got a nice consistency again. Perfect. And we're going to cover her back up. Place her aside. Definitely have your larger jar prepared and a name for your new baby. So I put her aside, and we're on day 4's feeding now. So we're up to a bigger feeding, and you're going to add 1/3 cup of bread flour and 1/4 cup of water. This is your last day to use this 12-ounce mason jar, so you want to have your bigger one prepared. I believe I go up to a 24-ounce. And don't be surprised if Joy is really bubbly and doubles as an even could be ready to bake with after this feeding. And if yours takes a little longer, that's not a big deal. You just repeat. And we're going to cover her up and put her aside. And sure enough, several hours later, she was double the size, bubbly, beautiful, and ready to bake with.
It's day 5. It's a big day for Joy and a big day for you guys. So I'm going to show you what to do. She grew all the way up to the top last night. I'm surprised that she did not overflow. She's still really pretty and bubbly here. Could have baked with her last night. If yours does that and gets to where she was, you can actually bake with her at that point. So the next feeding, without a doubt, you'll be able to bake. Okay, so I'm going to be using this jar because it has a wider mouth, so it's going to be easier to get that full cup of flour into here. Although you could just spoon it in. If the mouth on your jar is a little bit smaller, just spoon it in by tablespoons or whatever you want to do. But we're adding a full cup of flour today. She doubled in size. She doubled in size yesterday. You can tell that she peaked all the way at the top here because you see this is all now filled with sourdough gook, basically. And then she dropped back down because that's what happens with sourdough. She's gonna, every time you feed her, she's gonna grow. So you want to be baking with her when she's at least doubled in size, okay? That's when she's peaking. That's usually like within 4 hours after feeding. When she drops is not when you wanna bake with her. So you want to feed before baking. All right, let's move her to her larger jar. Actually, I'm going to put her in this smaller one. No, I'm going to put her in this bigger one. Okay, so this one is a 24-ounce jar. This one's 24 ounces. That should be totally fine. Now, if we put all of this in there, it should be a bit under half when we feed her. So when you're putting this in, when you're pouring her into the new jar, if it's over half when you feed her, it's probably going to overflow over the top. So let's just see where she's at, and I can give you some tricks for that too if we need. Okay, so it's the day that we move Joy to her larger jar. So let's go ahead and pour her in. I'm pouring her into a 24-ounce mason jar, moving her from a 12-ounce to a 24-ounce, okay? Now, I would recommend getting a jar with a wider mouth than the one that I'm using right now, because it's gonna be a little messy when you're feeding her to get the flour and everything in. But you know, it is what it is. This is what I have, so this is what I'm using. But I think that I like the 24-ounce size for you to move into on day 5. Because again, she doubled in size from her day 4 feeding and came all the way to the top and back down. So she was close to overflowing. We definitely could not do another feeding in a 12-ounce jar. Okay, so for the day 5 feeding, we are going to add 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of water according to the instruction. I'm gonna do it this way just to prevent a big mess, so, but we wanna get that full cup in there, okay? This is a very big feeding today for her. She's so bubbly and active, and that is because, so much for not making a big mess, but hey, listen, it happens. Don't freak out. But this is, she's so quick to be active because she's dehydrated in her most active state. Okay, and our 1 cup of water. Beautiful, and we're gonna get her completely incorporated now and see where she's at. I've always stirred with a fork. It's just what I do. Okay, so you want to incorporate everything, your starter that was already in there that's becoming very active. Make sure we get it mixed up really, really well with all the new flour and water. Now, I will say, this is over half the jar, so this is going to be a problem, okay? And so I'm glad that I did it this way to show you. This needs to be either in a larger jar or we need to dump some out. So it will be your first discard. And that's okay. If the instructions didn't necessarily call for that, mine might have grown a little bit more quickly than yours is going to, and there are different factors for that. Again, we talked about the factors that affect sourdough, and it has to do with weather, the temperature of your home, humidity, all of that kind of stuff. So this is actually a good problem, but we want to make sure that this can double in size without it creating a huge mess for you. Although I will say, when it comes to sourdough, a mess is definitely part of the journey. So I hope that you can embrace that, because sourdough is definitely a sticky business. But what I'm going to do here to alleviate this issue, and so that I don't have a big mess to clean up later or in the next 4 hours when she doubles in size, is I'm just going to pour some of her out into her other jar. Okay, so now she's under. She's about right here. You probably can't see well because the jar is, there we go, that's better. Right here is where she's at. Now this gives her plenty of room to double in size. If she overflows at this point, so be it. It just means she's extremely active. Now, what you can do is keep this in the fridge, and this is called discard. And all discard is unfed starter. So you can keep this in the fridge and let it go dormant, basically, so that it's not active anymore. You don't feed it, you just keep it there, and there are recipes that you can make with your discard. So now we've made some room for her to grow, and what you can do is go ahead and grab yourself a hairband, a hair tie, rubber band, whatever you call it, ponytail holder, and just put it at the line where your starter goes up to. That way you can tell when she's doubled. And guys, I know the instructions say we can take a few days to strengthen and this and that, and yes, you can. Everything that I just did, you can repeat all those steps, including discarding part of this jar again, feeding it in this jar again, growing it in this jar again, to strengthen her. However, she came back so strong, you can bake once she's doubled in size. All right, so we're just going to, again, loosely cover her. You can use a napkin if you'd like to. I like air being able to get in there. And we're just gonna go ahead and move her over out of the way wherever you've been keeping her and let her do her thing. Now, when she doubles, you can start your process of your first bread bake if you would like to. Or if you're not planning on baking yet, then discard her just like we did tomorrow. Feed her, throw a lid on tight, and stick her in the fridge. And that's gonna really slow down her growing process, but she'll be fed so that when you're ready to bake with her and you bring her out, she'll already be in a pretty active state. Feed her again right before you bake, about 4 hours before you bake, and she'll be ready to bake with. So you can plan ahead. But if you're not going to bake with her in the next several days, I would highly recommend of feeding and putting her in the refrigerator. So if you're not going to be baking with her over the next few days, do the discarding, feed her, put her away in the fridge. Otherwise, you're gonna have to tend to her every single day, and you're gonna forget to do that, and that's okay. But keeping her out on the counter and forgetting, she will go bad a lot more quickly than she would in the refrigerator. So the refrigerator offers that nice cold state that puts her to sleep so that you can not have a total freak out and have to do this every single day and be overwhelmed and feel like you have a brand new baby, which is what it can definitely feel like. And that actually drives a lot of new sourdough journey beginners away from continuing the journey, which I totally get. Even as seasoned as I am, I'm learning so much all the time, and I'm trying to share with you some of the things that I have learned over the last several years to get you kind of through that growth spurt more quickly than I was able to. But that is something I highly recommend. So, you know, I hope that makes sense to you. Just think the cold temperatures put her in a dormant state. If you feed her before you put her in the refrigerator, she's going to very slowly become active. And I mean over a period of time, days it could even be. You could literally sometimes, and I've done this, take her out of the fridge days later after that feeding, let her just warm up a little bit, and she's active enough to actually bake with without feeding her again and waiting for 4 hours to bake. And you can test that theory if you feel that she's active enough and ready to bake with out of the refrigerator. Just put some in water. If she floats, she is ready to bake with. So there's lots of little tips and tricks, but I mean, guys, here we are. We are on day 5. You are about to be baking bread. I'm so excited for you. Please feel free to reach out to me on any of the platforms that you watch me on. I'm on all of them. I always answer my DMs. Sorry for my dog. He's got to chime in at the end here. And I'm more than happy to help. But again, we just did our final day feeding, day 5, and you're going to be able to bake with her starting tonight or tomorrow or whenever you're feeding her right now. In the next 4 hours, you can start baking. And again, if that's not something that you have the time to do today, discard, feed tomorrow, pop her in the fridge. And again, thank you so much for your purchase of Joy. I really, really hope that you enjoy your journey.